They took everything from her: her degree, her dreams, her dignity, all because she shined too bright for someone who carried too much hate. But when truth finally rose, it burned everything false to ashes. A young woman crying outside a courtroom, a police officer being led away in handcuffs, a mother whispering through trembling lips, "Truth always finds its way home," and a voice soft yet powerful telling the story of how a lie almost destroyed a life, but couldn't. Ava Johnson was 22, and her name had just become a symbol of brilliance. The first black woman from her university to win the National Science Excellence Award. Her paper on renewable energy solutions wasn't just good, it was groundbreaking. For a moment, it felt like all her mother's sacrifices had finally turned into something golden. Her mother, Ruth Johnson, had cleaned houses for most of her life. One of them belonged to Police Chief Henry Wallace, a man known for his honesty, his quiet dignity, and the way he treated everyone with respect. Ruth admired him deeply, never imagining that one day her faith in justice would be tested by those wearing the same badge he wore. Ava's win was celebrated across campus. Professors praised her. Students cheered her name. For a brief, shining moment, it felt like life had finally given her permission to dream without fear. But somewhere in that same city, behind the polished badge and cold stare of Officer Bradley Kane, something darker began to stir. Bradley was the kind of man who believed the world owed him glory. His own daughter, Lily, had competed in the same science contest and lost. Watching Ava, a young black woman from a modest background, take the stage that his daughter failed to reach, ignited something bitter in him. Pride curdled into envy. Envy became obsession. He couldn't stand seeing her smile on the front page. He couldn't bear the applause she received. And so, he decided to take it all away. At first, it was whispers. Anonymous emails sent to university administrators. Claims that Ava had plagiarized her work, a missing USB drive with exam papers that somehow turned up in her locker days later. Each lie carefully planted, watered with rumors, until it began to look like truth. Then came the day that would break her life in two. In front of hundreds of students, Bradley Kane stormed into the university hall. His badge flashed like authority incarnate. He shouted accusations that echoed through the corridors. Cameras were raised, phones recorded, and before Ava could even comprehend what was happening, she was in handcuffs. The crowd fell silent as she was led away. Her classmates watched. Some pitied her. Others whispered that they had always suspected something. Within hours, her photo was on the news. Brilliant student exposed in exam theft scandal. The internet did what it always does, it devoured her. Comments mocked her, strangers condemned her, and opportunities vanished overnight. Her scholarship was suspended. Her interview with a global tech company was canceled. Every door that had once been open now slammed shut. At home, Ruth tried to hold her daughter together, but Ava barely spoke anymore. She spent days staring out the window, as though searching for a world that no longer wanted her. Still, Ruth prayed. Each night, her whispers rose like fragile hope in the dark. Then, one evening, the universe whispered back. At a small police gathering, Ruth was cleaning up after the guests. Laughter filled the air, careless, heavy, cruel. She heard Bradley Kane's voice, thick with arrogance and alcohol, boasting about how that girl would never recover. He laughed about how easy it had been to plant evidence, how no one would ever believe her over him. Ruth's hands froze around the dishes. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might give her away. That night, she didn't sleep. She knew she carried a truth powerful enough to shatter lies, but dangerous enough to destroy lives. The next morning, she went to Chief Wallace. She told him everything. The man she had served for years didn't respond with words. He simply nodded once, his expression unreadable. And then, he began to dig. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. He reviewed security footage from the university. He traced digital timestamps, compared fingerprints, verified every tiny detail. And soon, the truth began to rise from beneath the lies, unmistakable and merciless. When Ava's final hearing arrived, the courtroom was full. She sat there in silence, her once bright eyes now dimmed but unbroken. The crowd watched her like a spectacle. The press waited for another scandal headline. Then, the doors opened. Chief Wallace walked in, his steps steady and deliberate. In his hand was a thick file. Behind him stood a trembling young woman, Lily Kane. The room shifted, murmurs rippled through the crowd as the chief began to speak. Every piece of evidence he revealed tore through the web of deceit that Bradley had spun. The security footage showed him tampering with Ava's locker. The fingerprints matched. The anonymous emails were traced back to his computer. And then came Lily's confession. Her voice broke as she admitted she had known her father's crime but had been too afraid to speak. Tears streamed down her face as she begged for forgiveness, not from the court, but from the girl her father had destroyed. The silence that followed was heavy, sacred, and full of reckoning. When the verdict came, it was swift and just. Bradley Kane, guilty of evidence, tampering, abuse of authority, and perjury. The same cuffs he once used to humiliate Ava now clinked around his own wrists. As he was led away, he glanced back at Ava, but she didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on her mother, who was crying so hard her hands shook. Outside the courthouse, sunlight bathed the steps in gold. Reporters swarmed, this time not to accuse, but to apologize. Ava stood there quietly, holding her mother's hand, as cameras captured her story no longer as a criminal, but as a symbol of strength. Days later, the Fortune 500 company that once canceled her interview reached out again. They had watched everything unfold. They had seen her grace under humiliation, her silence under slander, her resilience under ruin. They offered her the position again, but this time, with a new title, Lead Research Scientist. Ava accepted. But what mattered more than the title or the job was the look in her mother's eyes, the pride. The peace, the proof that faith had not been in vain. On her first day, Ava stood by the window of her new office, sunlight spilling across her desk. Ruth stood beside her, eyes shining with tears she didn't bother to hide. And for the first time in a long while, Ava smiled, not the polite kind, but the real one, the kind that comes when pain finally gives way to purpose. The voice of the storyteller returns, soft but sure, as the world fades to a quiet close. They tried to bury her because she bloomed where they could not. But flowers that grow through concrete never forget the sunlight that brought them back. And so, she arose, not just as the girl who was framed for winning, but as the woman who proved that truth, no matter how late it comes, always finds its way home.